Welcome to the Institute's Leading Edge Crossroads podcast, where we examine the crucial decisions that professionals make as they shape industries, drive careers, inspire thought leadership, and ultimately build lasting legacies. I'm Kent Bullard, and I'm joined with my esteemed colleague, Michael Smith. And today we have a wonderful guest, Jason Brennan.
Hi, Jason.
Good morning.
Jason, would you please introduce yourself?
I'm Jason Brennan, owner of Fine Tune Auto. We've got 3 locations in Northwest Indiana and Chicago, and I'm happy to be here with you guys.
We're very happy to have you. We've got, I know, a phenomenal discussion ahead of us. Those of you who are listening to this either on the podcast or if you're looking at our website, if you have questions, it's very important to us that this is an open dialogue, that we're able to communicate what we talk about in this podcast with a greater audience. So if you have questions, if you have comments, we'd love to see those in the comment section down below. If you do enjoy the content that we cover today, please like and share because it helps the algorithm and it also helps spread these valuable lessons to a greater audience. Again, we're all about helping the industry and raising the bar for everyone. And we thank you for doing that. So let's jump right into the questions then. Let's start with number 1. What originally brought you to this industry and what inspired you to commit to this industry?
That's a really good question. The things that brought me to the industry were, I came from a technician background, and I thought about this on the way in this morning because I knew you were going to ask me a question like that. So I thought, okay, why did I do this? And
what the heck was I thinking, right?
I cannot remember a time when I wasn't taking something apart, repairing it, or trying to figure out how it worked in my whole entire life. So from a technical perspective, from a technical background, I think that's where it came from. Just the curiosity about how things worked. I had to know how they worked. I took my toys apart when I was a kid. I think that's a similar story you probably hear from a lot of people who started in the industry as technicians. So that was fun to me. It was more fun to take things apart and figure out how they work than it was to play with them, to me. So that led me into a career where I could get paid to do that. Only I was responsible for making sure they worked when I was done at that point. Yeah. So, and so that's what inspired me to get into the industry was just, I wanted a good career and doing something I loved. And I knew that I could do that fixing cars. And the other part of your question, I think, was what caused me to want to stay, what's causing me to stay committed. Why am I committed? I just ended up really loving it. I ended up becoming a shop owner, ended up starting a shop. And, at first it was technical stuff. I was really interested in the cars, doing a lot of diagnostics, building transmissions, whatever, all the technical stuff. And then I evolved into a service advisor and learned how to, learn sales and learn how to communicate well with customers. And I'm still learning how to communicate with people the best that I can. Because that's almost an art form, I think. But and then I became an owner, and that's when when my commitment really locked in. At first, I was just like, man, what did I get myself into here? But then the more I learned, the more I liked it. And what keeps me committed is being able to be part of and facilitating the success of my employees. That's really it's the thing I like the most about it. There's other things that keep me committed, like the good service we provide to customers and the fact that I enjoy the actual what am I trying to say? The business that we're in. I like all the aspects of it, the technical aspect and the customer service aspect. It's all fun to me, but the biggest thing keeps me committed is that I can go to work and witness employees succeeding and becoming their best the best they can be.
I'm curious because I want to dive a little deeper, to this. I took things apart to see how they worked, and I had to put them back together. You took that approach with toys and then vehicles. Did you bring that same mentality when it came to your business?
Oh, that's a real good question. Not at first, because I didn't realize I needed to. And that was part of the reason why I struggled for years. I didn't realize, I underestimated maybe even dismissed the fact that I needed to have business management knowledge in order to successfully run an auto repair shop. I thought I had already learned enough as a technician that I could fix cars, so I could just run a business automatically, and that wasn't true. So
what were your biggest surprises? What were your biggest discoveries? Ooh, I don't know enough about that. What were a handful of the topics you discovered?
The biggest one I'm still learning the most about, I think, is what makes people tick. What do they want? And how can I give it to them? And how can we communicate that to each other so that we can make that happen? And that's something that I'm always working. I don't think I'll ever be done working on that. But, financial management, forecasting, budgeting, how to read a P&L and a balance sheet, how to set key performance indicators and monitor them, how to affect them to keep where you need them to be. All kinds of stuff, that's
good
just,
list.
Those
good
are the main
list.
things,
Yeah.
I think.
Thank you for sharing that.
How long did you see? Because obviously you went to multiple locations, and you put this focus on now deconstructing and putting the business back together to see how it worked. How long did you play in that realm of just the single location? And did you think that there was that was going to be it, or were you always kind of planning that there was going to be more than just the one location?
At first, when I wrote a business plan when I applied for a loan early on in our business, and it did include a mission statement that included multiple locations. But I think that was more for, at the time, I wasn't sure if I'm not sure I was being honest with that mission statement. I put that I wanted to have multiple locations, but I'm not sure if I had the confidence that I'd actually be able to do it. I thought it'd be nice, but I wasn't sure if it was going to happen.
It's funny, what we tend to write down tends to come true, right? So even if you hadn't intended it.
See what you did to yourself, right?
Maybe it just happened because I wrote it down. I'm not sure.
There you go.
I forgot what your question was, but
it was was there a point in time, or how long?
Oh,
because obviously you're working in the one location.
Yeah.
How long was that your world, perspective wise? 18 years.
And what happened to make the second shop momentum start to move? What shifted? Now it's time. Now I can do it. Right.
So I hadn't known anybody who owned multiple locations. And I was in the Gear Performance Group, used to be called Bottom Line Impact Group. I was in my business group with the Institute, and I started. Some of my colleagues already had multiple locations, and some of them had opened a second or third or whatever more locations since I met them. And as I got to learn more about how they, kind of walk with them on that path, so to speak, I kind of I realized that it gave me confidence that I could do it, and it gave me some ideas about how to do it. I was involved in the M&A group with Michael Smith for a while, and I got to see a lot about how that goes from growth to all the way to exit strategy and everything. That was pretty cool to be able to see that. And anyway, so I just kind of observed. I observed some of my colleagues doing it, and I thought, well, there's no reason why I shouldn't do that. and I only had one shop. So I thought, and I had gotten it to the point where it ran, for the most part, it could run without me there. I was there most of the time anyway, but that's just because I like to work. Honestly, those people were so good at doing their jobs that I didn't really need to be there. I almost felt like I was getting in the way sometimes, or I was going to work and just sitting in front of my computer looking for things to do. And I thought, well, it's kind of like, I think it's time. I knew the general concept of how to do it, and I knew it was time to do it because my business could run without me there.
So you headed southeast from your first location to northwest Indiana. What was that? That's a strategic decision.
Right.
How did you process that? How did you come to that conclusion?
Well, the Northwest Indiana market has been growing in the last, I would say the last 10 years, especially in the last 10 years, the Northwest Indiana market has been getting bigger, and population. Well, I don't know if it's been getting better bigger population-wise, but I know that the demographics of the people who are moving into Northwest Indiana seem to be the ideal demographics for us. And so I thought, well, it's good demographics. The Northwest Indiana region seems to be generally favorable to, business friendly. I should say they seem to be business friendly over here. So those are a couple of the reasons why I chose that area. And where we are in Illinois, we're in southeastern Cook County. Our Lansing store's in southeastern Cook County, so we're right in the border anyway.
I'm curious, just going back to your research, did you work with a company to find that data to make those decisions, or was this more of a hunch that you knew the area that you felt as though that's what that area was growing into?
I did some research online on my own. I didn't hire any company or anything. Probably would have been a good idea, but I didn't do that. What I did do, though, was lived in the area for most of my life. So that's, like I said, we're right in the border. I now live in Northwest Indiana. I used to live in Homewood, Illinois. That's just on the other side of the border, pretty much. So I had been just throughout my daily life, had been around both South Suburban Cook County and Northwest Indiana, both, and I knew people who had moved there, shopped there, all that kind of stuff. So I can kind of get a good feel about what the demographics are in the area by just doing that, and then you can back that up with research online.
I love that. So was there apprehension? So once you've got the idea in your head, hey, I think it's time to expand and grow. Things are running really smoothly now. They don't necessarily need me. I think it's time to move on. What was some of your greatest concerns or fears about taking that next step? Or did you not have any?
No, I had definitely had some concerns. Anybody that doesn't have any concerns about expanding their business is probably setting themselves up for failure. You should always have some concerns, at least. Maybe not fears, but be careful with it. Yeah, there were financial concerns. I wasn't sure exactly how much cash reserves I needed to do it. So I had to put pencil to paper, or I guess keyboard to spreadsheet, or whatever you want to say, I had to do some math to figure out what I needed. I had to talk to some other guys in the industry and ask them what they thought I should have in the bank in order to not jeopardize my first shop in the process of expanding, in the event that we didn't have the business to make a profit. And how long. I basically planned on us losing money for a whole year I had enough. I'm pretty conservative when it comes to spending and saving and things and the risks I take. So I, you know, I think I had enough cash where I could have lost money for 3 years at the second store before I decided to pull the trigger on it, just because I wanted to be that stable. I wanted to be very stable. So, because you never know what's going to happen. So I thought, one of my concerns, or maybe fears, I guess, is, well, what happens if we have another recession or something happens in the economy beyond our control, and I open my second shop, and then my first store, sales and gross profit declines below a level of profitability right after I open the second one, and I'm losing money at both. That could happen. It didn't happen, thank God, but it could have.
So you were super well prepared financially, and that gave you peace, right? To be able to have some of the confidence to do this. You mentioned earlier that the human components, some of your greatest learning has been in that, and still kind of the leading edge of what you're building. When you made the second acquisition, what was your thinking going into it with regard to first leadership and team, and second with regard to customers, and then how did that carry over to further thinking with store 3? That unknown human fuzzy stuff, right? How did you handle that?
So what you're asking is, what did the human aspect things?
Yeah, going into it, what you were thinking, then you did it and you learned more. And then what did you take into store 3 from the second shop that made the third one hopefully a little easier? The human stuff, the hard stuff, right? The stuff we spent so much time talking about.
Well, I knew, yeah, you're right. And I get it. So I knew that I knew that once I had a financial formula for success and a business model and SOPs, all that kind of stuff, that was repeatable, or that should in theory be repeatable in a slightly different market, then everything relies on, after that, I think most of the business's success relies on the ability to attract and retain the people who can execute that business model. So super important. And so knowing that, I did recruit in advance. Before, I didn't have much time to open the second store. It was a store that was closed for a month already, I believe it was, before I'd found out about it through a friend in the industry, and the store had been closed for a month already. And I thought, well, the value of the business diminishes the longer I leave it closed. The more customers who come there and find out it's closed, the less customers I start with when I take over. So,
were there any employees still attached to that closed business, or did you have to start from scratch?
There were none attached. There was nobody currently working there, but there were 2 guys who had 2 technicians who'd already left and found other jobs, who really had enjoyed working at the Hobart, Indiana shop, that I was able to get to come back, and they're still with us. They really liked it. They live in the area. They didn't want to leave, but the place was closing, so they did. And I got them both to come back with the help of the old owner. So thanks to Keith Sweeney for that one. He gave me a connection there, and he gave me their phone numbers. I called them. He put in a good word for me. He said, "Hey, I think you should talk to this guy." And I got those 2 guys to come back, and they're doing well here. So that was really key. Having 2 good techs to start with was really great. And then I did recruit a store manager and hire a store manager. He accepted my offer, and we got them all onboarded and everything in advance. And then as we were doing facility improvements, it took another whole month before we actually opened. So during that month, during that month we recruited him, and he didn't show up on his first day of work. So that was something I had experienced before. So I wasn't, I hate to say it, but I wasn't really that shocked
He forgot to mark it on his calendar. That's what. That's really what happened.
Yeah.
Didn't set the alarm. Didn't have it on his calendar.
Yeah, I called him and I said, "Hey, where are you?" And he goes, "Well, I decided to stay where I'm at. I forgot to tell you that. Sorry." So, and this guy was a service director a service manager at a dealership. And they had talked him into staying. Maybe it wasn't the right thing for him. I can't blame him for that, but it would have been nice for me to know that. So anyway, I wrote service and ran the shop for about 3 months on my own before I was able to find a qualified person to come in and train to run the store. And I think, let's see, I ended up having a total of 3 store managers come in, and I had to let them go for various different reasons before I found the guy that is currently our store manager at the Hobart shop. So
I have
some people issues.
I'm curious to know, because I mean, it's definitely a different place you're in when you're at one location and then moving to 3 locations. What do you think some of the key mindset shifts you had to make in order to make that happen from just one location to 3 locations?
So one of the key mindset shifts I had to make was, which I believe that I made before I decided to expand beyond one location, was that the business needed to not rely on me in any daily operations aspect, except maybe phone calls and answering questions. So I was just like I was conservative cash-wise to make sure I was prepared. I was also conservative that way. I guess you'd call it conservative too, because I kind of overemphasized that concept, and I in the sense that I proved it to myself by even like I said earlier, I went to work every day, but then before I opened a second shop, and I had already been talking to everybody saying, "Hey, I want to buy or open a second location. If you know anybody looking to retire or who runs a good shop or whatever, let me know. Send me their number or them my number. Connect us." And that was already starting to happen. So before I decided to pull the trigger on anything, I purposely stayed home and worked on house projects. Went and did even if I was at the store, I might be doing a painting something or fixing a piece of equipment or whatever, and just purposely removing myself from daily operations, while keeping the ability to still jump back in if I needed to. And I was actually surprised at how, when I conveyed to my people at the Lansing store what I was trying to do, I was surprised at their reaction. I shouldn't have been, because they were all really good people, but I thought, well, this is going to take a while. We're going to have to work a lot of bugs out. But really, they just stepped up to the plate and did their jobs the best they could. And that equated to me it didn't take very long to prove to myself that I was able to not be involved in the daily operation there if I needed to be somewhere else.
Thank you for sharing that mindset shift. And we've talked about this in this industry over and over about working in versus on the business. And that mindset shift you made to put yourself in a position not to be in it and just to be available to work on it, that's a huge cognitive leap given the technical levels that we mostly come into ownership from. So thank you for sharing that. That's a huge topic for folks to consider.
I think a lot of people don't understand that if you're sitting there, being the one that cranks the lever, it's really hard to go do that in multiple locations, because now you're not just saying I'm just going to do more, but you literally have to double the amount of work that you're doing at that if you don't change how you're doing it, because your input has to equal a higher output.
Sure, and it's sort of compelling, or it's interesting to be the person that they bring all of their, problem solving questions to. Hey, boss, can I ask you a question? And there's a little ego that goes along with that. Well, yeah, why don't you do this? Oh, okay, thanks, right? And all of a sudden, when you pull yourself out, or, in the process in the middle is, well, what do you think you should do? Kind of a thing. All of a sudden you realize they can do it on their own, and they actually like doing it on their own. And then they're happier doing it on their own. And it's like, this worked pretty well. And they're
right. You're 100% right, Michael. And thinking back, that is something I did. I did ask that question a lot. What do you think we should do here? What do you think the right thing to do is? And that's a good way to train people, I think, to be more independent, is to ask those kinds of questions. And
the downside to this too, Jason, is later on they're like, hey, stop helping me. But I have an idea. I don't want to hear it. Yeah. Right? It's like, okay, right? That's fine. Just make it work.
That could happen.
Yeah, it could happen too. Yeah, I love it.
But letting people know, there was a point in time where I remember we had a shop meeting. We were having a shop meeting at the shop in Lansing, and we've been having problems with that I created with people, with technicians, thinking I was looking over their shoulder too much and telling them how to do their jobs, and they really didn't. They were experienced, certified technicians. They didn't need to be told how to do their job. They just needed to be allowed to do their job. But then I felt that I felt that they didn't want to be held accountable, which was true in some cases. Some of them, maybe didn't want to be held 100% accountable to the outcome of the repairs that they were doing. So I kind of felt like I was stuck. I had it like there was a catch-22 there. I have to get involved, because if I don't, then the technician who's doing the repair isn't going to want to be held accountable to the outcome of the repair. So I just need to make sure it doesn't go wrong. That was the wrong approach. So eventually I figured out what the right approach was, and we had a shop meeting where it was almost like a mutiny, I think, where everybody in the whole shop called me out in public and said, you're looking over our shoulder all the time. You're telling us what to do. We don't like that. It's really it was almost a toxic environment, I think, because of that kind of thing. And so I just said to them, all right, you guys want to, you're right. I shouldn't be getting involved in these repairs. You know what you're doing. I'm going to make you a deal right now. I'm going to just trust you to do your jobs, but I don't want to hear, I don't want to get any flack about or hear any, I want to hear your opinions, but I don't want to get a bunch of pushback when I try to make a change in the business operationally or growth-wise or equipment-wise or anything that we've already discussed, or maybe it's not your department, so we haven't discussed it, but any of these decisions I make, I just want you guys to trust me to make the right decision. And I'm going to make mistakes just like you guys do sometimes, but I need you to trust me as your leader to take us in the right direction. And if you can do that for me, then I will trust you to do your jobs, and I will hold you accountable to the outcome. And you can hold me accountable to the outcome, because the outcome, if I don't do things right, is, the outcome, if you don't do something right, could be a pretty bad situation as far as a car repair goes, or a customer service situation if you're a service advisor. But the outcome of me making a wrong decision could be really great, or it could be really catastrophic as far as, destroying the whole business or making the business super successful. So believe me, I know that I have a lot on the line with my decisions. So I take them seriously. I know you guys do too. And that's the deal. That was the deal we made. And that was a turning point in that shop.
Yeah, I want to reflect on that, Jason. I don't want that to go by the folks that are listening. You made a huge cultural pivot with that meeting. I mean, the idea that you came to conclude that the masters don't want you to tell them what to do, which is absolute psychology, right? It's like, we're good at what we do, and when we ask you for help, come give it to us. If we don't, leave us alone. That's very much of a master's mentality. And the fact that you were willing as a master to give them the grace to have that space and then say to them, this is about trust, and make that a topic culturally. And then they feel trusted. And you asked them to give you trust back. And then you developed your relationship pivoted in that meeting. You guys adopted a new way of having a relationship together. And I love your reflection. It was a turning point, and it's worked out, right? Once you trusted them and they trusted you, they took off and did their jobs, and you didn't have to help them. The results have shown. So I just didn't want that to go by, folks, about what a moment that was in the development of your company, and what a massively good decision you made to let go. Boss, right? You let go. You gave it back to him and said, okay, I'm going to trust you. I will leave you alone. I was trying to help, but I'll leave you alone, let you do your thing. And then they ran with it, which is fantastic.
Right. So. Thank you for pointing that out, that, because I didn't think of it in terms of mastery. Back then, I didn't even know anything about that. You know who I owe that? I had been dealing with those issues for a while, and then it came up in a meeting where I had to deal with it on the spot. But I had been talking to my dad about it. He owned a plumbing company. I helped him build growing up, and honestly, if he's listening, I apologize in advance, Dad, if you're listening. But his company had a horrible culture, but and it wasn't on purpose. He's a great guy, super nice guy. But it was really what we call old school, I guess, and just do your job and I'll do my job, and we'll all just be quiet and do our jobs. That was their whole entire culture, and that's it. But when I brought to his attention that people had, I had the feeling that people were unhappy that I was telling them how to do their jobs and get too involved. He said something to me like, well, nobody likes to be told how to do their job. And or guys that are good at what they're doing, like I think we were talking about plumbers. He said, well, yeah, when I was a plumber, I didn't like people telling me how to do plumbing. That's why I went to code school and all this other stuff. I knew what I was doing. Could kind of feel like an insult. When you're trying to help somebody, sometimes to them it could be perceived as an insult.
Yeah, you're right on. That's exactly what it's perceived as. It's like, it raises these intuitive, natural questions. Don't you trust me? First of all, and secondly, do you question my skills? Do you think I can't figure this out if you leave me alone? And you're not saying any of that. You're not saying a single one of those things. You're actually trying to help. Right. But that's not how it's processed on the receiving end. So great conversation, and kudos to Dad. What a great comment, because he's right on. Works for plumbers, works for carpenters, works for business people too. I mean, it's white collar, blue collar. It's human. It's human. Yeah. And it's wonderful story. So thank you for that. That was great. And thanks, Dad. So
I have to commend you on your attention to preparation before you made some of these steps. You leveraged a lot of your assets, looking at people, looking at the financial aspect of it. What do you think some of your strongest assets were as you were building and expanding? And what were some of the assets you were surprised to discover could be leveraged as you were expanding?
Strongest assets and ones I discovered, I guess I would say the biggest asset was the people we had in place already, because that was what allowed me to even do it at all. I wouldn't have been able to expand the business without the people we had there. And I made sure that everybody I wouldn't have done it if I didn't feel like everybody who worked for me at the time was somebody I would never want to replace or lose, and that they would all work as a team to help each other and help me fulfill our mission, and allow us to expand. So biggest asset, I guess, is the team that we had at the time and still have most of. And then assets we discovered, I think, I had been working partially remote before the expansion, partly out of convenience and partly because inefficiency, and partly because I wanted to test my ability to not be there and have the operations run well. I had developed ways of not having to be there, ways to work remote. So leveraging technology, Zoom, like we're doing now. We're on an electronic meeting, we're on a Zoom meeting or a podcast, whatever it is. So being able to work from my car if I had to, or a cell phone or a laptop or whatever remotely, I had sort of already set that up, and I didn't even realize how well that would work until I was at the second store all the time and didn't really need to drive all over the place to bring people pieces of paper or whatever. So I guess just leveraging the technology that we had in place.
I like that. You kind of had to think of new ways of doing things, and circumstance thankfully kind of pushed you to try some of these new things. But I think it's interesting, as you go to expand, I always talk about input versus output. You want to be able to change your input so you have a much greater output, right? And
Right.
that is, I think, part of the challenge you have to overcome is thinking, I'm not going to do 2 times the work. I'm going to do 2 times the better choices or better work, so they have a much higher outcome. I'm curious to know, leveraging those assets and kind of expanding, what was one of because you're essentially developing a new way of doing things, right? What was one of the biggest developmental challenges you faced as you shifted into this growth strategy?
That's a good one. I guess developmental challenges. I don't know if it's what you would define as a developmental challenge, but I might be developmentally challenged in general. I don't know, but
that is not. I want to clarify. That's not what I meant.
You can go there if you want to, but I wouldn't. I wouldn't go there if I were you.
Anyway, I went back to work a lot more hours. I'll tell you one thing that was hard. It was that I went from working at one point in my career 100 hours a week because I was doing everything the wrong way and had to subsidize my wrong ways of doing things and mistakes with extra time personally. And then I got used to working like anywhere from like 20 to 30 hours a week. I felt like I was only working 20, 30 hours a week. I was probably working 40 hours a week, but it was not necessarily, not very, very stressful because I would just make my own schedule and do my own thing and not have a whole lot that I had to commit to, could have days off whenever I needed to or wanted to without a lot of notice. And then I went back for a short period of time, there was like a month of 80 to 100 hour weeks again.
Which is interesting too, because you shift, your mindset has shifted away from being in the business, but you make an acquisition, and in the case of the way you did the first acquisition, or the second shop, right? You had to go back into it. You were right back at the front counter again. You're right back into the store management role again, which was
exactly. And I think the answer to Kent's question is I've never opened a second store, and it was so long ago that when I started the first one, it was kind of a slow organic growth thing. I started as a tech. It was just me. I had a few pieces of equipment and I grew it slowly, and I had done that over the course of 18 years. So I didn't have a checklist or anything of what I needed to do. I didn't even remember everything I did. So when I went into opening a second shop, I tried to prepare and make checklists and all that stuff. And back to assets, one of the assets biggest assets is colleagues, friends in the business. I got some checklists from them and some advice from them, but I still went, every situation's different though. So when I went into it, you're right, Michael, I was right back into the operation, running the store while I was trying to finish remodeling and stuff, and things didn't go as planned. I wanted to open up right away. I had a really good technician who started before we opened with me. That was another big asset. He came in and totally, I didn't need to tell him what to do a lot. He's kind of knew how the shop needed to be set up to run for maximum success. So anyway, him and I were here before we opened and after we opened, just nonstop reorganizing, facility improving, setting up we were still setting up computers and putting stuff together, after we had already opened. So it was kind of messy the way we did it, but it worked.
Yeah,
So,
you cleaned it up. So let me just go forward. Now you've got store 1, 18 years, store 2, intense, quick open, build it, learn the hard way. Now you go to store 3. Just give us a quick overview. Was that the best of both worlds? Did it look like 1 or 2, something brand new? What did you do? What did you step in next, right? So
that was, yeah. It was a little, it went a little smoother. Well, it went a lot smoother actually. Okay. So it was a purchase from a guy retiring. That one never closed. It's remained open the whole time. That was a little bit of a challenge. That was a different challenge than the one that was already closed. I had a little bit of time to do whatever. I could have chosen when to reopen. I was able to choose when to reopen that store. The third one, I came in with better checklists, better conversations with the current owner, and I felt like I definitely was more prepared. I had a whole plan laid out to how I wanted to do it, but the biggest challenge there was I had never taken over a store that was running. It's kind of when people would ask me how it was going in the first couple or 3 weeks or month or whatever, I would say, well, it's kind of like trying to change the engine of an airplane that's still in the middle, still in the air. It's because it they had all paper repair orders. They didn't use computer. Well, they sort of used computers. They had a secretary that would recreate handwritten repair orders in the computer in Mitchell. So that was kind of weird. The owner would write service in the shop. He had a big long desk in the shop, and his desk was standing in front of that desk. That was his job all day in the shop with impact wrenches going and everything. And since we weren't able to close it, or we didn't want to close it, I should say, for any long period of time, for really any period of time, that's how we operated for, I worked with him, alongside him, and my store manager, myself and my store manager worked alongside him for probably about a month, I would say. So, right, we knew going into it that we're going to want to implement all of our technology and systems there, but it was almost like we had to run like 2 systems simultaneously. It was really chaotic because there were repair orders that were all on paper and different, notes highlighted with different colors that we didn't know what they meant and all kinds of crazy stuff. And then we, any new repair orders were started in TechMetric. So it was kind of hard because we had all these clipboards with repair orders on them floating around, and we had repair orders in the system, and they are in TechMetric. So we never knew where it was, whether it was, we'd forget, was this one in TechMetric, or is that a handwritten clipboard one? And then, or is it maybe both? A little bit of,
a little bit of both. Right?
It was just.
Did you manage to keep the team through this? Did the team stay? Because that's quite a transition on the fly, right? You're changing wings and engines while you're up in the air, and that's stressful on the people that were dialed into the old model too, right? How'd you do with that? How'd you do it? So
it was well, I would have liked to have conversations with the employees before, and I would have pushed harder for that if I had to do it again. When we do it again, before the transaction occurred, right before we bought the place, before we sealed the deal, and a couple of things that went wrong. I didn't push hard enough because it really there would have been no bad effect, I don't think, if I came in and talked to the employees before the deal was inked. And the old owner was afraid to do it. I didn't push him to do it, but I should have pushed a little harder for that. And so anyway, how it went is I came in there one day and the owner said, "Hey, this is the new owner. I'm selling the place to him, but I'm going to be around for a while to help make sure transition goes okay." And then I met all the guys and talked to them, and they were pretty nervous at first, which is to be expected. I think it's understandable. So I was there every day, so I was able to continually have conversations with them. I made sure I did a, one-on-one intro meeting between me and them. And but it was pretty chaotic because I was doing all that stuff, trying to answer your question. I kept everybody. We did let one guy go after a while, but we kept everybody from day one. And
so the guy that went was released on your terms, not them running out the front door. Okay, thank you. Yep.
Right, he was a tech. We just decided to let him go, and
not your kind of tech, right? Mm-hmm.
Right, yeah. So we were dealing with that. I was aware that would be a pretty disastrous if everybody just walked out.
Mm-hmm. It can be.
Somebody else I know in the industry had that.
I was going to say, we have a friend that did that, right? Day one, nobody was in the shop. It's like, oh, that's not what you all said, but okay. How the customers move through store 2 and store 3? How did you do both of those transitions? The customer side. You bought a dead one that people used to drive by and stop at. How'd you go back after that market? And then how did the owner maybe help you with the second one? How did you try to lose as few customers in the third one too? Because this is fascinating case studies, right?
It's a good question. So the first acquisition, so our second store, I drafted a letter, kind of an intro letter, from me. No, actually, it was an intro letter from the old owner. And I showed it to him and said, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And it basically said, "Hey, thanks for being a customer for, I think it was 20, 25 years or something. You had the place, maybe 30 even. Thanks for being a customer for years. I just want to introduce you to the new owner. I'm retiring, and this is the new owner." And it had both of our pictures on it. And we used to do some of our own mailers. So that one we did old school. We got the customer list out of Mitchell, printed it off, put them on envelopes, and we have a little folding machine. We just printed these things on 8.5 by 11 paper. And it was kind of like I said, just an introducing the new owner letter, give him a chance. He's a good guy, blah, blah, blah. And then I had him sign it. He said, "Yeah, that sounds real good." So he signed it. And we folded them up, mailed them out to all the existing customers, and it worked out really well. We put a coupon in there too. Mm-hmm. So
can I just reflect style wise? That was a very familiar kind of a thing, rather than a big old fancy, multicolor, shiny, advertising looking thing. It was a letter. It's a folded letter from the two owners saying, "Hey, we care about you guys. Come back. We'll take care of you. Give us a try." I love that. Very familiar. I'm not surprised it worked. Yeah. So that's really good.
Yeah, it was really well received. I was surprised at the response. We didn't track it, but I was here every day, and we got a lot of phone calls.
Fantastic.
From that letter.
Yeah. So the second one's rolling. Oh, I'm sorry, brother. Go ahead. I didn't mean to get in the way. So
people even stopped by. Yeah. Based on that letter, they came by and said, "Hey, I just wanted to meet you. You're the new guy." And it was kind of cool.
Yeah, that is cool. So
then just deployed our normal marketing strategy that we already used at the other store with the same web company. And that took a while to get off the ground. That was something unexpected. I was thinking, well, we'll just do these Google AdWords. That's our main new customer acquisition marketing method. And I took it for granted that our Lansing campaign was working real well. And then the guys, they were like, "Well, congratulations. Yeah, we'll do your campaign for you." And then when I asked them, "Well, how long before it becomes, reaches maximum effectiveness?" Because they had brought up the fact that it takes time to build a Google AdWords campaign. It just doesn't happen overnight. They do research and they do testing and they make changes, and then they just repeat that process. And they said, "Oh, well, between 3 to 6 months." I'm like, well, and I went, "Oh, well, that's not good."
there any way to make it 1 to 2 months? Is there?
They really did a good job.
That's good. That's
They
great.
did. They exceeded expectations,
Good.
but it did take a while, and we did have to do, and still are doing mailers to supplement that. So, and then so go ahead. You're going to ask a question.
Oh, no, I was just going to say thank you for all that. That's a rich information base. What did you do differently with the store that was already underway? Now you've got customers that are maybe even the next day driving into the driveway expecting their car to be repaired by the old owner, right? How did you handle that one? It's a different model. So
that one, it was interesting because there was, the repairs were in the store never closed. So, I walked in and the secretary, we did have a secretary quit it. So I take back what I said earlier. We didn't keep everybody. There was a secretary who actually was kind of becoming the face of the business. She would talk to customers, take their key, receive their keys, give them their invoices. The owner would be the one who would talk to them about repairs, but she was the one they saw when they came in and picked up their car. So, she decided she didn't like the ownership change and I never got to meet her. She just decided she wouldn't come back to work once she found out it was
That's tough. That's the face of the business at that point. That's a tough one to lose. So
kind of, a lot of the owners or a lot of the customers knew Bill, the owner, but a lot of them also liked the secretary. And so I got a lot of questions about it. Where's the secretary? Where is she? And, oh, it's too bad she's not here. I like working with her, but I just reassured people, myself and the manager I hired to work there, just reassured people that we would take good care of them. And
were you sitting at the front desk at that point? Did you take that role and you were the new face at the front?
Well, it was myself and the manager I hired.
And the new manager too. Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Yeah,
awesome.
So
yep.
We were, and he didn't last too long. I ended up, but I didn't have to go through 4 total people, and in Hobart, it was, 3 people. And then the 4th one stuck. In the Crown Point store, it was 1 person. And then the second guy stuck.
Hey, the next store, it'll be a first time stick, right?
I hope so.
I'm curious to know because a lot of this has to do with managing people, right? So you've got the dynamic of there's people already in existence. They already have relationships with the customers there. There's also what people do I not have that I do need. And I'm curious to know what your thoughts are or what your needs are when you're looking for people at this point. So you've been through a few different managers. What's one of the key things you're looking for in a manager as you're expanding and growing? So you're going out to the interviewing part of it. What characteristics are you looking for?
Well, ideally, that's a good question. Ideally, I'd like to, unless the 4th store we acquire has a good existing manager, which would be nice. If I was going to have to just hire a new manager, I'd like to promote someone from within my company. One of my assistant managers. I'd like to. We run 2 people on the counter at all of our shops, a manager and an assistant manager. And the assistant managers are supposed to learn to be able to run the store when the manager's not there. So they're gearing up and training to become a manager if they want to. They don't have to, but if they want to, and they've gained the skills necessary, then they're able to be promoted. They're definitely going to be considered for promotion to store manager. Either when we acquire a store or somebody else moves to a different store and now they're the manager there. So, that's the first thing I do. But if I have to hire, if I have to, and I have had to just hire a store manager, off the street, that's a good question. I'm not sure if I have the right answer because it didn't work out in the first shot for me any of the times. But if they've run a store before, an auto repair shop before, that'd definitely be a plus.
Well, I guess another way you could ask this is, what are some of the reasons, and not to get personal, I don't want to get personal for these people, but what were some of the underlying reasons why that manager didn't work out? Because then you can kind of
yeah.
say, well, okay, that's something I don't want for the next one.
I think that some of the reasons they didn't work out is their expectations were not really properly aligned with the reality of the situation, and that could be my fault for not setting the expectation or making it clear to them what the situation was really going to look like. So one guy we had who came in from a dealership had the right personality type, I think, and the right characteristics, but he ultimately, I think he expected. This was in the Hobart shop. I think he expected it to grow a lot faster. He was a little overconfident, I believe, in his ability to grow the store to a level where he'd be making the kind of income that he thought he should make in a short amount of time. And then I think he underestimated. He just underestimated the amount of work that it was going to be to help me grow the store from the level where it was when we bought it, where it needed to be. So,
Jason, can I grab onto a couple things that you said here that are super important? And I want to cut some slack for everybody listening to you too. You took the blame, I guess, in a way for expectation setting with him, that you could make it more clear what it was really going to feel like. And I just want to cut you some slack as your friend, right? And somebody who knows a lot about folks that doing what you're doing. There's more unknown when you buy a new store than you wish there was there. And no matter how prepared you are, how many checklists you have, there's a whole bunch of wrinkles in there that no due diligence process can be thorough enough to figure out. And so all of the projections are theoretical. And I'm not trying to, put too much risk in here, but it's not as easy as it looks. And, to cut us all some slack, it's difficult to say, this is the pathway that we have 90% assurance. You get into it and stuff starts popping, and somebody you didn't expect to quits, and a whole wave of customers leave for reasons nobody would have ever seen coming, and all kinds of crazy stuff like that. So there's lessons you've learned. I don't want to get by for people. It's awesome. It's your character that you took the blame for that. But man, is it hard to figure something out that you're doing for the first time with so many moving variables? And that's maybe one of the characteristics I just wanted to catch on the way by, was part of the expectations that they might have is that, hey, this is the best we can do to see what we think is going to happen, but we're going to have to be flexible. We're going to have to be resilient and persevere for a few months until we really do figure out how to dial this in. And it may not look like this. Are you okay with that? And if they say yes, then at least that you have that door open, that they don't get frustrated because it wasn't what I expected it to be, right? Because you kind of set that up in your conversation in the first place. So,
and this is where humility and grace come into play. Jason, you were talking earlier about the hours that you worked, right? And just bringing this to this point, I drew a diagram here because I was looking at. I thought it was interesting. You said I worked 100 hours because I didn't know how to run this shop at that point. I didn't have these competencies. And then I finally got it dialed in and I was working less. And then I took on a new challenge and then I ended up working more again. And I mean, this follows the mastery path, the mastery model a lot. And I think it's the same thing with these managers or the people that you elevate into these positions, if you're hiring from within, is that, there's going to be things you don't know and it's going to be difficult and hard. And you got to give some grace to allow for the time and the space to learn those competencies.
Really, when we think of it, back to what Michael said for a second, actually, about setting expectations and the fact that we really don't know. We can set goals, or we can talk about an ideal scenario or a likely scenario, but we don't know actually what's going to happen, exactly what's going to happen and how it's going to look and feel. And I did do that I did. Now that I think about it, I did tell this guy exactly what you said, or sort of what you said, that we don't know exactly what's going to happen. It's, might be a little rocky at times. Your base pay is a pay that you told me that you can live on this pay. Well, that's good because it might happen for a month, or it might have to be that way for 8 months. We don't know how long it's going to take to grow the store to where you can make more money, your desired pay as opposed to your base pay. And I think this guy was just a little overconfident or a little maybe just whatever you want to say. But with that part, one lesson I learned from that particular guy managing the store was that he had been doing well, and then he got demotivated when things weren't going the way that he thought they should. We had a really good month, and then followed by a really slow month, and that's when he got demotivated. And I had been ignoring my Lansing store, which was fine, I guess. But really just, they did need me for a few things here and there, and I just couldn't give them any time. So once that manager got his feet in the ground in our second shop, I ended up, going, once I felt like he had his feet in the ground, I went back to Lansing and spent a bunch of time there repairing some equipment and things like that, because I realized that I just always did it, and we never assigned it to anybody or had any procedures or processes in place for equipment maintenance. And since everybody was, nobody wanted to bother me, I found out that, I think it was like at the 6-month point of me hardly ever being there, I found out that there's a bunch of broken stuff and that no one was telling me about. So one of the techs called me, goes, "Hey, I hate to bother you, but this thing's broke." I think it was one of the sleds on the alignment rack was broken. And then he said, "Well, yeah, and by the way, also the tire machine doesn't work right." And we have to keep,
While we're at it, here's another thing on the list.
I was wondering, should we call someone to fix this stuff, or are you going to stop by and help us with it, or what? And a lot of it just fell apart from lack of maintenance, because I wasn't there and I never put together a shop maintenance checklist or a procedure. So we now have that in all the stores. But I spent like a month myself, because I thought I was able to. I really shouldn't have, but I spent like a month fixing, refurbishing, replacing stuff, and then developing a maintenance checklist and assigning it to people. And then by the time I got back to the Hobart shop, the second store, I found out that pretty much the whole time I had been gone, the leadership in the second store, which was the manager, had been super discouraged and even started undermining the company and telling people that he thought, giving people his opinions about where he thought the place was headed, which is nowhere good. And it's not going to work out here. I don't think this growth plan's going to work. Maybe you should. He even told one of my techs that maybe he should start looking for a job elsewhere. This was all happening while I was gone for that, mostly gone for that 1 month period of time. So I walked into it and figured, luckily, I have a part-time guy that works for me who does helps with operations management and recruiting. Max is his name. He's the one who figured, he was there more than I was, and he clued me in on it. He goes, "Hey, when you get back here, we got some problems to deal with." And then one of my techs was already out, had already gotten job offers by the time I caught wind that any of this kind of stuff had occurred. And we were able to keep them. But morale, close call. Morale was super in the dumpster, and I had to come in, myself and Max, both had to come in and bring that back up. We had to fire both the manager and the assistant manager. They were kind of cohorts in the Eoring of the shop.
Mm-hmm.
And
you have so many rich experiences, Jason, and a couple I just want to catch on the way by. As you scaled, you've developed the ability to grow from within. And this idea that people can career path with you and grow and stay and do more and achieve and be recognized and take on more, very much of a human development path that's satisfying to people. And it means that as you do that, the fourth store, the fifth store, the sixth store, you have a capacity not to have to go outside and bring in people that, and I'll just say this, don't have the trust in you and the system because they come from the outside. And when you can groom them from the inside and people know your character and trust you and the system and know when something goes wrong that it's going to get fixed, right? The patience, I mean, a demonstration of this is the patience that your team gave to you in trust. Just to not even, it's being the beloved type owner that you are, they don't want to let you down. They know you're busy. They don't call. But the other side of that is the fact that, they're not going to blow their lives up. At some point, somebody finally says, okay, maybe we should just call them and let them know. And then you run in and fix it, right? And again, one more thing as you scale, just these are lessons that you've learned that are magnificent to share. As you continue to scale, you might have somebody other than you as the new store landing receiver, right? Somebody who drops in, who's a super internally developed, knows the fine tune way, can go to the new store, make sure the transitions occur, and you're not lost in that system, right? Because you're the only guy historically that could do that. But now you have a scalable model where you can have an expert follow you through the new transactions. And all of this is just fantastic lessons and stories that you're sharing. And I just want to catch some of this on the way by. You've really learned a lot in the way you've gone through this. And thank you for sharing all that. It's great experiences. And you've mastered a lot, even in the solutions. The way you've solved them is full of rich culture building concepts too. So thank you for this, Jason. I really like watching you go. It's great stuff.
So it's a lot of evidence of patience and persistence and growth in your leadership. And I think that's where I want to take the conversation a little bit, is to look at, how have you grown as a leader between, your early career and the first location, and then now where you're up to 3 locations?
So I'm sorry.
How is your leader? How do you feel, or what are the ways that your leadership has changed or evolved over the years?
Oh, yeah, man, I'll tell you a lot. It's sometimes I learn by. Unfortunately, I'm one of those kind of guys that learns by mistakes a lot. So that's why I have so many of these stories. But you know what? When you're a better leader, you make less mistakes like that, less of those kinds of mistakes. So there was a huge incentive for me to grow as a leader. And one of the biggest incentives was just realizing that, man, when I realized that a lot of the problems I was having were due to poor leadership. I really wanted to learn. So I started as the phases I went through was, I started kind of like your traditional old school boss. That was how I viewed leadership. It used to, my dad and people who I'd worked for as a technician, usually, in any of the places I worked, you tried not to talk to the boss, because if you're talking to the boss, that means there was some kind of problem. And, that was the culture I came from. So that was how I led. And it used to work, but it was just never a good idea. Even if it worked, I don't think it was great. It doesn't work anymore because we have a technician shortage, and for various other reasons, people just they won't put up with that kind of the positional leadership mentality anymore, and stay working for you. They'll just leave and find somebody else to work for. So I couldn't have continued doing that even if I wanted to. But I'm glad I'm not doing that anymore. So I would just tell people what to do and expect them to do it like I would do if I was somebody's employee, and it didn't happen. Then I evolved into more of a kind of a learning mode, and I made a bunch of mistakes there too. I maybe gave people too much slack or became too close friends with them, and I was just figuring out I was thinking to myself, how do I tell people things in a nicer way than just saying, just do this? And I thought that was all it was about, was just how I said it to them. Maybe they didn't like the way that I said it, or maybe I needed them to ask them more nicely or something. And really, that wasn't all. That's good to do, but that's not what it was all about either. What it really, I think, became is, and so some of it, I went to Michael Smith's leadership intensive a couple of years ago, I think it was. And all the things I'd been experimenting, the style of leadership or style of management that I had been experimenting with, all kind of came together in my mind when I took Michael Smith's class, read some books, and among other things, and then kind of understood that people are all different. They might perceive the way that you say things to them in different ways. They're looking for the good employees, or I should say ideal employees, are looking for some kind of career path to mastery. And if we can give that to them and convey that we're giving that to them and ask them what it is that they actually want out of their career, and align our company's goals with their goals so that we all succeed together, then people want to go to battle for you and do what you need them to do when they understand that it's good for everybody. So,
and Jason and you and they bring their own energy to it. You're not
they want to do it. They do it because they want to do it, not because you told them to do it.
Right. You're not bribing them. You're not threatening them. You're not cajoling them. They come to work with their own motivation because you're all going in the same direction, which is powerful.
So I'm curious. I want to know if you could go back to young Jason before a lot of these challenges and pursuits that you've had. What's the one lesson that you would want young Jason to know?
Great question.
That's a good question.
Depends on how far
leadership
back,
wise.
Right? Yeah, back in the 5th grade or back. No,
yeah. If I think back to the beginning of business ownership, I don't know if there's one that I can really point to say that's the one that would have made my life a lot easier. But there's a few main ones. Don't open a business if you don't have any at least some basic accounting and some business management principles. And don't go into business undercapitalized. I would have told myself that, have a business plan, get some industry expertise involved, get some basic business management and accounting training. That I should have done that first. Would have made my life a lot easier. I probably would have shaved. I probably realistically could have shaved 7 to 10 years off of the time it's taken to get to the point where we are now. Because I think the first 7 to 10 years were just spent spinning my wheels and doing the wrong stuff. So,
what now at the stage of your personal professional growth? How do you define success?
Well, it's a hard one. I thought about that a lot too recently, because I've been thinking, because people always ask me, well, so you're going to buy another shop pretty soon or build one, or what are you going to do? And then I tell them that my goal is to have 10 by 2030, and I'm still going to do that. But I start thinking to myself as I'm getting asked these questions, is that my goal? Does that mean I'm successful when I get to 10 stores, or am I not successful now because I haven't? I guess that what's that cliche? It's about the journey, not the destination, or something. It's kind of I've been thinking about that old cliche phrase a lot more lately, and thinking that I need to redefine what success means to me. So I'm not exactly sure, but I know it's not when I hit 10 stores. That's not the definition of success to me anymore. It used to be, if you just wanted to say, well, what does it mean to be successful? Well, when I'm done with this plan, then I get to 10 stores, that means I'm successful. Well, that mentality could cause some people to think that they're not successful because they haven't achieved that goal yet. And that's not necessarily the case. Probably not the case. But that's the way that I've felt before. I've had those feelings, and I think that comes from driving myself too hard over the years and maybe being a little too self-critical. So I'm redefining what success means to me. And part of what it means, I know for sure, is what I said earlier about facilitating the growth of other people. It just makes me happy to see. And I feel successful when I do that. So that's definitely one of the things that defines success in my mind, is that I'm helping other people to achieve their goals, and that they're happy to come to work every day. They have a job they like to do. And that's something that I'm helping with, or I'm a big part of. So the number of people, I guess you could say, the more people feel fulfilled in their careers and rise to the top, the more successful I am. That's for sure.
Great answer. Great answer.
So I want to end with this question. Michael, do you have any other questions?
No, I was thinking of the last question and how this is such a segue into that last question.
I think we're kind of making our way to this point. What's the legacy that you hope to leave at the end of all of this?
When all the dust settles, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot too. When all dust settles and, someday I'm sailing off into the sunset, or probably still working on a car because I like doing that. Whatever I'm doing,
whatever it is,
right? Whatever it is that I'm doing at the time, I like people to think, man, that guy was a really great guy to work for. It's too bad he's not my boss anymore. That's just the general thoughts and feelings I like people to have about me, and that we really built a good thing together. And I'd like to see that still continue. I'd like to see that even when I retire someday and pass along the torch to someone else to run the business, I'm leaving them with a really good, solid foundation for even more growth. And I'd like to see that we don't lose the family aspect, the family feel to our business, where people help each other because they know that that's the right thing to do. And by helping each other and helping customers in the process, we make money and everybody's happy. I like to see that kind of thing continue.
Yeah. Just take
pass beyond me.
Yeah. Follow on question about the company, the community legacy impact that the company might leave. What would be a note that you'd like to have how does the community see it when you've built it the way you want it and handed it off to the next steward, right? What would you like them to see when they look at the company?
I'd like to see that. I'd like them to view us as a place where they can, trust, that they can rely on, and that we're making a positive impact on the community. We're not just here to be here or to make some money or whatever it is. We're here to, that we care about the community. And I guess in a nutshell, I would like to leave off in a way that, when, let's say, whoever takes over for me someday wants to build a Fine Tune Auto location in a town that has never had one, they welcome us in with open arms and say, great, where do you want to put your shop? We'd love to have you here. That's how I'd like to be viewed by the community.
Fantastic. Jason, fantastic.
I love that.
Yeah.
This has been such a phenomenally enriching conversation. Jason, you've shared a ton of experience, and I know that there's a lot of people out there listening who are either currently dealing with this or they're going to deal with these issues.
Thinking about it.
You've given them some reassurance and some insight on how to approach these problems. Thank you so much for being here, truly. Listeners, if you have questions or comments for us or for Jason, obviously make sure that you join the conversation, because we'd love to have you a part of this. And ask them down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the content here, please like and share, because it helps the algorithm, gets it promoted out there. So again, we spread this information and help uplift the industry. And if you want more information about the Institute and what we do, you can find that at wearetheinstitute.com. Jason, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for having me.
It's good to see you, my friend.
You're welcome.